All right, everyone, let's join together in our bracha for reading Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Okay, we are in chapter 9. We're getting toward the conclusion, but we're not there yet. And we are, I think, on verse 13. Does that sound right? Okay. No silence means, no comment means I think that's where we are.
Yes, I highlighted 13 and I put a bookmark there on my Kindle.
Great. Gam ze ra'iti chokhma tachat hashamesh ugdola hi elai. This too I have seen, wisdom under the sun, and great is it to me. Or as they translate it, it affected me profoundly. I'm sure there are other interpretations. There's not a lot here, but it's about the, it's basically concluding what we just read. And just as a review in verse 12, and human beings cannot even know their time, as fishes are enmeshed in a fatal net, and as birds are trapped in a snare, so humans are caught at the time of calamity when it comes upon them without warning. So this is something that, is bothering the psalmist. He's basically pointing, or not the psalmist, the Kohelet, the writer of this work. He's saying that, these are things that he's seen and that it is significant to him. Ugdola hi elai, it is of great matter to me. And what is it? It seems, if it's contextual, 12 and 13, it's the unpredictability of longevity and the unpredictability of mortality and the way in which we are, we just don't know our last days. So that's what we're saying here. Let's see if there's any English comment on this verse. Steinsaltz has his own translation, which for some reason pulls out ahead. This phenomenon, too, I have seen under the sun as wisdom, and it is great to me, is how this is interpreted. Okay, any questions or comments on this? Then let's keep going. Verse 14. Ir ketana vanashim ba me'at uva eleha melech gadol v'savavotah uvana eleha mitzodim gedolim. A small city and people in it were few, and came to it a great king, and he surrounded it and built upon it towers, great big towers, or as they say, built mighty siege works upon it. So he's telling it looks like a little parable, a little story, with few men. Okay. Oh, right. So this is to help us to understand why does it matter that there were few people there. He's helping us to recognize that this small city with very few people had a king who came along who essentially attacked it and surrounded it and built, mitzudim gedolim, great big, let's see how they translate this word. Siege works, bulwarks. That sounds right. Protections. Stronghold. Stronghold is the word that probably speaks the most to me. Any comments on this little story? This is the beginning of a story and it goes on to the next verse. So let's do that. Umatza ba ish misken chacham Umilat hu et ha'ir mechochmato, ve'adam lo zachar et ha'ish hamisken hahu. And found in it was an curmudgeonly wise man, or something along those lines. Misken. In modern Hebrew, misken is sort of like a pathetic person, someone who's just not doing well in life. But here, misken, they use it as wise. So in this city where there was no defenders, and the king came and built upon it these strongholds, it found in that same city was a sort of an old kind of, but wise, kind of defenseless, kind of pathetic person. Umilathu etayir mechochmato, and he would have saved or rescued the city from his wisdom. Vadam lo zachar etaish hamisken hahu. But nobody, now this translation is saying something a little different. This one says it might have happened that he saved it, but no one was there to think of him. But the context of the text itself seems to suggest that this man was there and he had the capacity to,
Go ahead.
through his wisdom, to save them. But nobody remembered this person. They say remembered. So I guess it's the same idea. Nobody thought of, nobody rescued. Nobody.
The art scroll has a certain difference in tense. It says, present in the city was a poor wise man who by his wisdom saved the town. So it's assuming that it happened, but then it says, yet no one remembered that poor man.
Right. That was actually what I first thought of, and then I started reading this umilatu. It'd be interesting to hear other translation. This phrase umilatu kind of suggests a rescuer was he, or he would have rescued, something along those lines. And here the translation, so I would not be surprised if there's variation in translation. What do you guys have for this?
Well, mine is that now there was found in it a poor wise man, and they're just saying poor. They're not saying decrepit or anything like that. And he, by his wisdom, might have delivered the city, but nobody remembered that poor man. It's like saying whoever was in charge of trying to stop it never remembered this guy, that he was so wise and that he might have done it, because he kind of faded off being poor or whatever his situation was.
Right.
Yeah,
So
mine is similar to that too. It referenced it. It says, and one poor wise man was there to be found, able to save the whole town by his wisdom, and not a soul remembered that poor man.
Yeah, so it's so either he actually did rescue, which is some of these translations, and other translations suggest that he had the capacity to save. And in the case of the one who actually did save the city, he was forgotten. And for the case of him not even being able to do it, it's that they didn't even think to ask him.
Well, it could actually be both. It could be that at some point he saved the city, and then he became destitute or whatever, and nobody remembered him. So it's sort of like on the one that Pamela said there.
Yeah, I mean, even within the context of JPS, you can see these translations over here. Okay, these are the three translations that Jewish Publication Society presented. The oldest one from the bottom, it says, and he by his wisdom delivered the city, meaning he did actually save them from this king in verse 14 who came and basically surrounded them. So he used his wit and wisdom and saved the city, but no one remembered him. If you look at 1985, it says he might have saved it, but nobody thought of him at all. So it hinges on this idea of zachar. This, did nobody remembered or no one considered, right? Or thought of. They translate it here as thought of, but here it literally remembered, and in the 1985 thought of, which they continued. These two are actually identical, I think. So, in any case, what seems to be suggested here is you can have all the wisdom in the world, and it might not amount to much in terms of your legacy. Right? Because I think the common thing here is you're not able to give. Or you are able to give, but there's nothing permanent about the greatness of your giving, which I kind of like that one more. I like that more because it says a lot about all of our pursuit of greatness and how, on some level, it's kind of pointless.
I have another take. What if it's not on the greatness, but it's on the oh my goodness, I just lost my thought. I'm sorry.
The train of thought of the people, it's a comment on the people. The people aren't recognize him after.
Oh, right. Okay, I remember what I was going to say.
See,
I'm sorry.
married to him.
If he was so wise, why didn't he, wave his hands around and say, "Hey, I've got an idea here to save the city," instead of letting the city go under?
Because he's a misken. So that's where that word plays a role. In this word, he is, miserly, sad, a poor man, right? So on some level, okay, so that's a very simple translation. But in modern Hebrew, I wish Avital were with us. In modern Hebrew, a misken, I think, is more of a pathetic being, like someone who's kind of, sometimes someone shows up at shul and they don't quite fit in and they're kind of to the side. And no, but Sylvia, you're very in it. You come and people talk to you. I'm talking about the person who just does not have it together. We had someone who used to come regularly. He stopped coming. This nice Latino man who just kind of sat on his own, and he kind of had a bit of a smell to him. And, he just was a misken. That to me is what misken means. But in this definition, they just say it's a poor person.
Well, I'm looking at if you look at it as the side that he did deliver the city, but no one remembers, I think that's very common. We have people who do these heroic things, and then the next generation could, care less. They don't care that someone, saved that institution by volunteering 24 hours a day or donating that sort of thing. Unless, of course, we put up plaques and then they look at the plaque and they go, "Oh, who's that? Oh, who cares?" There is quite a lot of amnesia among that, as the generations go.
Yes.
So which I think was sort of what Irvin was sort of saying a little bit too. Or maybe I'm wrong.
So in Avot, I think it's Antigonus of Soho. Yes, this is it. I can't believe I remembered this. It is only the third one in Pirkei Avot. Antigonus, a man of Soho, received the oral tradition from Shimon Tzaddik. He used to say, "Do not be like servants who serve the master in the expectation of receiving a reward, but be like servants who serve the master without the expectation of receiving a reward, and let the fear of heaven be upon you." That comes to mind here because this guy could have saved everything. He might have saved everything, but he's not remembered, essentially, is what the text is saying. He's not celebrated for being a great hero. If you read it that he did actually deliver. No one remembers him. I mean, it's sort of like in the Torah when there's an unnamed hero, like the man who Jacob sees on the road and he tells him which way to go. right? He's never named, right? There are these people who have an impact, but they never get the recognition. Or the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, for that matter. We have that idea. So who knows what the text actually is saying? I know we don't. I mean, we don't know whether it happened or it didn't happen, and we know that we don't know because it seems like the translations have it go in both directions. Let's see what Rashi says. Yet no person remembered. No one attributed any importance to him. All right, so that's what we were saying. Like, to be remembered means to be acknowledged, according to Rashi here.
Well, I guess in Judaism, being remembered is one of the highest things that you can have in your life is to be remembered. But I also wonder on this statement, are you doing things so that you will be remembered? I mean, that seems like you're not doing it for the right reason. The right reason is because you need to do it rather than to be remembered by it.
Yeah, I mean, what's happening in this text is the writer is telling a story of a person for which this happened, and we haven't yet really heard what he has to say about it. So it could go either way.
Okay.
We don't know
Well, I
yet.
can tell you there's going to be a bunch of fools.
Look, before we get to that, Irvin, on the right side, we also have the English commentary from Adin Steinsaltz. It says, he expands. It's a sort of a paraphrase translation. He says, in this situation, it might seem that the city has no chance, but a poor, and then he says, or wretched, right? Because it's that word misken, and wise man was found in it, and he saved the city in his wisdom. But after a while, nobody remembered that poor man. The leaders of the city took all the credit and praise for themselves, and everyone forgot the poor but wise man. Now that sounds like humans.
Mm-hmm.
Like we
It's like what?
see this.
Humans.
People
Human.
who, we do. Sometimes people take credit for things that they didn't do. That's even.
Oh, of course.
And Steinsaltz, it's not in the text itself, but he teases out that idea in his translation. So that's an interesting. It's worth looking at Steinsaltz. He's commenting on human nature here when he says the leaders of the city took all the credit and praised for themselves.
That's the book I have is Steinsaltz.
Great.
There's also part that you can glean from this, that you can get wisdom from anybody.
Tell me, say more.
Well, I mean, it's just like, who is wise? Those that can learn from anybody. And this is an example there that if you were wise, you'd learn from this guy that you weren't expecting to.
Yeah, I mean, I like this text because it's saying that when you see someone who is wretched or poor or, in a compromised appearance, they could be, we do have this tradition of the idea that they actually could be Mashiach. We don't, just because they're poor or they're not particularly well kept doesn't mean that they don't have wisdom. And there's that famous story in Simon Wiesenthal's book, The Sunflower. Isn't that what it's called, The Sunflower? He tells the tale of, he basically, the question that Wiesenthal brings up is, do you honor, the main question is there's a Nazi who is on his deathbed and he calls a Jew in the concentration camp to his bedside and he asks for forgiveness. And the whole book, well, half the book is about this discussion of can this Jew, provide the forgiveness to this Nazi who's on his deathbed. And depending on who the theologian is, they do a survey of a whole bunch of theologians, and everybody kind of gives a slightly different answer. It's actually an outstanding book and worth reading. It's fascinating. But in that book, there's a story that Heschel tells, Abraham Joshua Heschel. He tells the story of being of a man who is the great Rebbe of God knows where, who's traveling on a train and is kind of incognito. He's dressed as like a, he looks poor. He's not fancy at all. No one pays any attention to him. And something happens. I can't remember the story well enough, but along the way, and I should reread this, there are people that are playing cards, and they kick him out of the table, as if I remember correctly. And they treat this man, this Rebbe, this very profound teacher, really badly. And they're on the train to wherever they're going. And at the next stop, the train stops. This Rebbe, who looks poor and miserly and not particularly inspiring to anyone, gets off the train to a massive crowd of Hasidim. And, in this moment, all the people who had treated the Rebbe like dirt say to this man, to this Rebbe, he says, we're so sorry. We didn't realize who you were. We want to apologize to you. And the Rebbe, what does the Rebbe do? He says, well, you can't apologize to me. You got to apologize to the guy that was on the train that was poor and miserly and you had no interest in and you insulted. That's the person you have to apologize to. And so that's Heschel's tale, in the context of that book. So I think on some level, we do as humans make very quick decisions about who a person is based on how they appear. It actually, just as another side note, I was at shul this morning and I had this conversation with Rabbi Sharon Brous and with my friend Eric Green about how they were on, they were each telling stories of being on an airplane and sitting next to one was in an airplane, another was like in a public space, and they saw someone and they processed who that person was as if they were enemies of their particular values system, right? We see people and, I think in the Jewish world, often people who will see someone who's dressed with a keffiyeh or with a hijab might make all sorts of assumptions about who they are. And Sharon Brous told this story of someone who looked like a, very right-wing settler type. And it turned out he was a really nice guy that she was sitting next to, who happened to be from Nazareth and was trying to relocate to the United States, right? And so we do, on some level, make superficial judgments of people. And that's kind of what's happening, I think, in this text as well. And we have to kind of ask questions about those prejudgments. So, there you go. That happened today, same day. Any last thoughts on this? All right, let's go on to verse 16 then. V'amarti ani tova chochma migvura v'chochma tamisken bezuya udvarav einam nishmaim. And I said, better is wisdom than strength. And the wisdom of the miserly one is scorned, is devalued, and his words aren't heard, or as they translate, are not heeded. And that's a whole question of na'aseh v'nishma. We have this idea of we will do and we will hear. Is it hear or is it hearken, right? Hearken means to do something. Nishma is the same root, same word. Is it heard or is it hearkened to?
Mine's not heard. But also, mine used despise as is the poor man's wisdom was despised.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a good enough translation. Despised, scorned. I think it's kind of the same thing. Zayon, here, let's look at how they probably have scoffed, to hold in contempt, despised, and here it says scorned. So you said despised. Yeah, it's all kind of the same thing. So he's devalued, is what it means. Better is wisdom than strength, and the wisdom of the poor person, we'll just say that, is despised or scorned, and his words are not heard or hearkened to. So that's his conclusion over the situation. Questions, comments, thoughts? I think it's more of what we just said in the parable. Here's the parable, here's the nimshal, here's the lesson that is being taught. So he says, and I said, and here they translate it as, so I observed. I said to myself, perhaps. Okay, keep going. Let's see if we can get to chapter 10 today. At the very least, we're doing okay. Divrei chachamim benachat nishmaim miza'akat moshel baksilim. The words of the wise ones, or of wisdom, the wise ones, with comfort are heard, or something like that. I'm sorry. The words of the wise ones are more heard than the cries of a ruler in their foolishness. But that seems to contradict what we just said, doesn't it?
It's saying the words of the wise spoken quietly are heard more than the cry of a ruler among the fools. So that's talking about. Yeah, it's a different take. Definitely, it's kind of flip flop. You're right.
Yeah, it seems like he's now saying that the words are heard of the wise ones, whether they're so it seems disconnected. And you'll see the comment here. It says, these verses constitute a group of loosely connected aphorisms. So I guess we shouldn't expect it to be connected to what we just heard. This does sound a lot like Proverbs. Divrei chachamim benachad nishmaim miza'akat moshel baksilim.
Well, on mine, it's a new paragraph. So I think it's whoever set this up thought of it as a new thought.
Yeah. So there you go. And and it seems like this one is the triumph of wisdom as opposed to fools. Thoughts on it?
I kind of think the paragraph before was talking about the difference between the poor wise person that nobody's going to listen to because they're not in good clothes, they're dirty, whatever, but they're going to remember the stronger, loud one. And here they're now going a step up, and now they're talking between the wise person who's quiet, who might not be a poor person, just might be a very wise person, and talking about the ruler who is obnoxious, and nobody really wants to listen to that ruler, but they want to listen to the words of a man who's quiet that really knows more than the king. So I think it's just taking it in different levels.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering who the fools are. Mine is, the ruler among fools.
That's interesting.
So yeah, the ruler is not heard either because the fools can't listen. They're fools.
It's a little
So no
tricky.
matter how loud he gets and yells, they're not going to hear him.
Well, the translation seems to suggest that the ruler himself is a fool, which actually does kind of make more sense. Because otherwise, why would we be talking about the words of a wise person versus those of a ruler, unless the ruler is somehow associated with not being wise? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Shouted.
I bet the translations are diverse.
In folly.
See, it says a lord in folly, meaning, yeah, but there is a problem in Hebrew because it doesn't match in syntax. Moshel bas kilim, the ruler, the one who rules with the kisilim, which are the fools. But they translate it as if the ruler is the one who's foolish. But kisilim are people. These are foolish people. So there is a problem in the text. And the way they resolve it is by saying a lord in folly rather than a lord with fools. Does everybody see that?
Yours says heeded, mine says acceptable. So, I mean, somebody is accepting and heeding, or they are not accepting and heeding. So I thought in the second one, it's the fools who are not accepting, but you're saying it's a ruler, the ruler's a fool. It's a little tricky sentence, yes.
Right, that's the point. Yeah, that's exactly what is a little confusing. Who is the who are the fool? Who is the fool or fools? The text itself, look at the way it was translated in 1917. I typically like the 1917 translation more. This one says the words of the wise spoken in quiet are more acceptable than the cry of a ruler among fools. So is it like, I guess here, let me do it this way. We can parse this in different ways. It could be the words of the wise spoken in quiet, that's part one, are more acceptable. Here, let me do that again. Are more acceptable, I should have done a different color, than the cry of a ruler among fools. That's one way it could be done. But it also could be the words of the wise spoken in quiet are more acceptable than the cry of a ruler. Then there's another break among fools. So that among fools, the words of the wise spoken in quiet are more acceptable than the cry of the ruler. And that actually makes sense. Foolish people are more aware of the words of the wise person spoken in silent, as they say, although I don't think that's quite right. They're more apt to listen to the wise one speaking softly than the yelling or the nagging of a ruler.
Is that really true? Because if they're fools, they don't have the wisdom to listen to the words of the wise.
That's right.
But I would argue that that is part of the folly of humans.
So is that saying we're the fools?
We're the fools, yes.
But that it doesn't really go along with what they've just said above, because that wise, gentle person or the wise person that wasn't outspoken didn't get the credit.
Yes, but
So,
that's why I think we have this line here that says these verses constitute a group of loosely connected aphorisms. In other
okay,
words, it's not connected.
okay,
And I think that's correct. I don't think it is connected. I think
okay.
that we would have to say, um, but you see how I'm cutting off among fools. Now, this translation calls it a lord in folly, meaning that these words are connected. But I'm not convinced that that makes sense because of the tense. See, this is singular, and this is plural. And that's weird.
The translation in our scroll is the gentle words of the wise are heard above the shouts of a king over fools.
Yeah, but even that one, over fools, is that
Yeah,
a king over fools? Anyway, yeah,
yeah,
no, I think that's right. You hear what we're saying here? It's a,
yeah.
you know, it's a little,
It's eats, shoots, and leaves kind of a thing.
yeah, exactly.
Eat,
Hmm.
shoot some leaves.
Okay. All right. Shall
Leave.
we keep going? Wait, let's just actually, before we keep going, let's talk about this. You're saying that maybe it doesn't make sense that the wise are heard more, or are, people listen to the wise over that of the blabbering ruler. I don't know. Sometimes I think that's true, and sometimes I think it's not true.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going through different scenarios here.
Okay, let's do verse 18. Tova chokhma mikle karav v'chote echad ye'abed tova harbe. Greater is wisdom than a tool of krav, of martial arts.
Mine says war.
Says what?
War?
Right,
Weapons
that's
of
what it
war?
says here, but I don't see how that is right. Since when is this war? I guess it is war. Oh, that's
That's
interesting.
that's not the same route as to draw near.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, wow.
Or
That's
it looks
weird.
like it is. It might not be, but it certainly looks like it. It's the same root, but whether it's. So sometimes there are roots that converge because they are Hebrew that come from other languages, and the roots will come together. An example of that is Erev. Lihit Arev means to mix. But Arov can also mean, same root, same three letters, can also mean, uh, what does it mean? Ha'arevna, like sweetness. They come from totally different sources, but they have the same Hebrew root. So I don't know whether Karav is an example of that or not. It very well might be.
Mine is a little different, Rabbi. It says, better wisdom than weaponry, yet one lone sinner can destroy much good.
Yeah, that's, I think, what this says.
Hmm.
That is very true.
Mm-hmm.
And it's painful to see. You build, you build, you build, and then some bozo comes along. Whether
Also,
it's,
the adage of loose lips sink ships.
well, yeah. So what's interesting is this word choteh. right? It's from the same root as chet, but it's translating it as an error. But it also could be one sin will lose all the good.
Yeah.
Lose much good.
One mess up.
Yeah. But it's mess up with the word sin in it. So is it malicious or is it not malicious? Like, is it an accident, which is what an error sounds like? Or is there intent to undermine? And I think there's arguments for both interpretations.
Well, you can sin intentionally or unintentionally.
Right, but so which one is this?
Yes. I mean, both, I would imagine.
Yeah, maybe it doesn't really matter. Something comes
It
along, whether
doesn't.
it's intentional or not, and next thing um, everything is lost. So this is
You
one
know,
of those pessimistic passages, I think. Yeah.
but the during the days of repentance, we're reminded that we can be forgiven, but you still have to face the consequences of what you've done. So it may be an intentional sin, it might be unintentional, but there might be consequences you can't turn around.
Right. I mean, we have sins chotim that are b'shogeg, and those that are what is it? Yeah,
Macy.
b'mezid, right? So
Right.
we have intentional and unintentional sins, and you still have to deal with it. And you have that in the temple too, the sham offering, right? It's a guilt offering. It's not necessarily that you were intending to be sinful or do the wrong thing, but you still there's punishment that comes with the sin. But I think the main point of this is it's really easy to the world points toward entropy sometimes. Things very easily fall apart. To quote, kind of paraphrase Butler Yeats. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. So,
And I think Michael Jackson was wrong about one bad apple don't spoil the whole bunch. Girl. I think that's the last word.
is that Michael Jackson? I don't know that one.
Wasn't
Yes.
that him?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Can hear his voice singing it.
Yeah.
Actually, it was back with the Jackson 5,
Ah.
Oh,
I
okay.
believe.
I don't know that song. That's
One
funny.
bad apple don't spoil the whole
Boy, the whole
bunch,
bunch.
girl.
That's funny.
Well, I as a classroom teacher, I remember, get this beautiful class of sweet students, and then you get the kid that was kicked out of the Catholic school down the street come in, and everybody's all agitated, and you're starting all over. These are rules, and this is how we behave, and yeah, and you just deal with it. And by the way, the mom loved me.
Yeah, number one hit.
By the
What was
way,
it? And the Jackson 5. It was originally intended for the Jackson 5.
Urban just looked it up, and this is so embarrassing, but it was the Osmonds who sang that song, Sylvia.
No.
I know.
There's nothing wrong with the Osmonds, Donnie and Marie.
Well, no, it's just that I made a mistake. I should know my what is it, 80s
No,
bands?
that's 70s. That's got to be
70s?
Donnie
Okay.
and Marie is, yeah. I don't know it. That should give you an indicator that it predates my knowledge. And Donnie and Marie have not aged well over time, I don't think. Like,
Okay, youngin.
you don't really hear a lot of Donnie and Marie anymore, but you do hear
Well-
Michael Jackson.
It was a 1970s gold album.
Yeah, exactly. Note, I want to just pay attention for a second. I think it's better for us to focus on a little bit of the Rashi here than to move into chapter 10 since we're at a nice break point. But he says, Tova chokhmah miklei krav, wisdom is better than weapons of war. The wisdom of Serach is mentioned. So does anybody remember who Serach is?
No.
Sarah, but
Yes. Keep going.
yeah, we did a thing on her in our Rosh Chodesh.
Who is Serach? Serach
She,
bought.
Asher,
Yes, Serach bought Asher.
and she lived what 400 years, or she lived a very long time.
Yes, she lived a very long time, and we know this from the biblical account because she's mentioned as someone who goes down to Egypt, and she is referenced as someone who leaves Egypt. So remember, bought Asher, Asher's daughter, Asher the patriarch, goes down to Egypt, and 400 years later she leaves Egypt. So so that's who they're talking about according to Rashi. The wisdom of Serach, of whom it is stated, and the women that went to all the people in her wisdom, that availed them more than the weapons that were in their hands. So Serach's wisdom was greater than the weapons to war in their waging war with Yoav, which you'll find in 2nd Shmuel. So there you have it. And then it keeps going. But one sinner destroys a multitude of good. Had she not slain Sheva, the son of Bichri, they would all have been destroyed by him. Anyway. And then a davar acher. But one sinner destroys a multitude of good. If Israel were half of righteous people and half of wicked ones, and one person came and sinned and made the wicked the majority, the result would be that he weighed them all down to be guilty. Okay, that's smart, Rashi. Let's see if it's actually Rashi. Yeah. When a wise man becomes a sinner, many people will abandon their pursuit of wisdom by concluding that this person's wisdom was of no avail. So there you go. All right, well that, there's a lot to be said about this, but I'll just keep my big yap shut. Okay, any last thoughts on this? We're going to get to chapter 10. I think there's 12 chapters, right? Yeah.
You don't want to talk about dead flies and putrid stuff?
No.
Well, that's chapter 10. We're on chapter 9. So
No, the end of the sentence.
No,
No,
Mine
that's 10.
is different.
Oh, that's 10:1.
Yeah, mine ends with putrid.
Oh,
No, we can do that next time.
Okay, so your ends with but one sinner destroys the most good. I wonder why.
Right.
That's weird that they would cut it off
Interesting.
where mine is. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know why it's like that for yours. Well, and yours is the JPS, right?
Yeah, 1917.
All right, I'll take a look at that.
But it's possible this is a Kindle, so the Kindle sometimes
Probably
things
the
come
Kindle
out a little
then.
strange. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably the Kindle. All right, well, I think we'll have a few minutes ending early. We'll end a few minutes early. What do you folks? Here, I'll turn off the camera and then I'll talk. Here we go. Okay, bye.